Hey guys, what's going on? Blaine back for another Netflix review, and today I'm going to be talking about the Soccer Football movie. The Soccer Football movie is an American animation that tells the story of a group of 4 kids who are all huge fans of the sport of soccer. They enjoy attending games featuring their favorite players like Megan Rapinoe and Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and all seems well at first until a scheme is revealed. An evil scientist creates an experiment which takes away the talent of any soccer star it comes across so that he can use the talent for his own gain. After repeated incidents occur, the kids must take matters into their own hands and help their idols before things get out of control. The title alone doesn't exactly inspire confidence, and indeed it doesn't take long for one to realize it's quite subpar. It's not the worst animation I've ever seen, but there's almost nothing about it to recommend beyond it being a cheesy kids film, and even that aspect is done poorly. The characters were boring. I can't even tell you any of the names of the kids who serve as the main characters of the story because they were just that forgettable. The only things I have to go on are minor personality traits that don't add much to the movie, so as far as protagonists go, these guys are a huge letdown. It's not necessarily bad to have characters that lack depth, but the problem is that they lack memorability too. They're virtually indistinguishable from each other beyond their gender and skin color and have no goals or agenda outside of saving the soccer players. They're about as vanilla can get. The supporting characters in the movie are even more bizarre, as most of them are named after and voiced by the people they're based on, including Megan and Zlatan. This is an idea that could have been done well, but in this case, I'm sorry, their voice acting is just awful. I have to stress though that that's not their fault, as they're not trained voice actors. If they were in just one scene from the movie each, it wouldn't be so bad, but they're featured prominently throughout the story, especially Zlatan. Trying to hear Zlatan and Megan emote anything in a natural way becomes increasingly frustrating, because it's clear they're not in the movie for their talent, but to help market it. The only character that really stood out in a positive way was Weird Al Yankovic, who, as with the players, is referred to by his real name in the movie, which is something I found more and more odd the longer I continued to watch. Aside from this oddity though, Al was great. He has a funny gimmick where he's constantly changing professions and clothes on the fly, and it's a treat to see him go full ham into his evil scientist role, as well as lean into his real life persona with him playing Polka. He's pretty much the only entertaining performance in the whole movie. And that's really a shame because the entire movie is supposed to be a comedy, yet so much of it falls flat. It's overly reliant on physical humor and slapstick to generate laughs, which becomes more irritating to watch the more it gets shoved into the viewer's face. I am aware this movie is made specifically for kids in mind, so it makes sense for it to be dumbed down to some degree, but they didn't have to do it this much. There's a lot of scenes where characters are getting outright hurt, and somehow that's meant to be seen as funny, when it really isn't, and it just comes off as low-hanging fruit. There's also a lot of really bad running gags that come in the form of lines that are repeated ad nauseum throughout the movie. The most annoying one is how one of the girls in the group keeps begging Megan Rapinoe to get a selfie with her. It goes on like this for the whole movie, and it's so annoying. I really don't know why the filmmakers relied on that line so much. I noticed a lot of fourth wall breaks in the movie too, which didn't bother me at first, but the longer it went on, the more I scratched my head. Every now and then, someone will say something like, "No, we can't do a musical number, it's not in the budget," or "Look out, he's the villain," and it's just weird. These breaks don't come off as funny so much as they're jarring. The whole point of a fourth wall break is for a movie to be self-aware and raise a reaction from the audience. In this movie's case though, the breaks rarely have an air of humor behind them, so when a break does happen, it feels underwhelming and comes off as more of a distraction to the plot than anything else. It almost feels like it's trying to be a Looney Tunes cartoon with how often it relies on these physical gags and wall breaks, even going so far as to use sound effects when characters get hit or attempt to tell a bad joke, which results in a record skip or crickets chirping. It tries so hard to be funny that it ends up going the complete opposite direction. As far as the animation itself is concerned, this might sound controversial, but I think it looks okay. It definitely has a low budget feel to it, but the character models look alright when moving, and aside from some plastic looking facial gestures, there isn't any sort of uncanny valley effect like with Marmaduke for example. What bothered me more about the animation was just how unappealing it is to look at. The environments are empty, lack anything interesting when it comes to texture, and are just straight up boring. If it weren't for the monster and slime scenes, there wouldn't have been any reason to make this an animation. And on that note, the monster scenes barely play a role in the movie at all. The gags surrounding them wear just as thin as the others do, and the whole concept behind how the soccer stars transform them back and forth is just ridiculous. One would think they would show more variety of the movie's world with how they hop around, but sadly this is not the case. What's even worse about this is that the movie likes to linger in its boring environments for way longer than necessary. The scene where the kids meet Zlatan for the first time is a prime example, where Zlatan is practicing in the middle of what looks like a subway tunnel, which is just a weird place to be in general, and then he and the kids play soccer and chat for like 5 minutes. It's like, why? Other times, the problem is that the scenes are too short, with some just being pure filler for the sake of more bad comedy. This isn't helped when the movie is plagued by dissolved transitions that are frequent in number, so the movie has this weird feeling where it's both sluggish and spastic in its pacing. Now, while I don't think it's a good movie at all, I have to admit that I didn't hate it as much as others seem to. I think that's because the movie's runtime is pretty short at just over an hour in length, so it never outstays its welcome for too long, and it adds a silver lining to this cinematic mess. Overall, the Soccer Football movie is a boring, uninspired work of animation that doesn't have much of a reason to exist. If you like animations and you really want to see one that centers around soccer, this might pique your curiosity just for the actors alone, but there's not much else to recommend about it. One can tell this movie was designed with kids in mind, and the humor is aimed squarely at that demographic. It's good that this movie's content is at least mostly appropriate for that age group, but most of it is so low effort anyway, I find it hard to understand why one should bother when there's so much better content elsewhere. What did you think about this movie? Did you also find it to be boring and unfunny, or were you able to find some enjoyment in it? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways guys, that's going to wrap up my review of the Soccer Football movie. Thanks for watching this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always stay tuned for the next part, where next time I review the Christmas rom-com, Falling for Christmas. Bye bye!